Let's get into one of the wildest aviation mysteries of the 20th century. It's the story of a flight that just vanished over the Caribbean. The real investigation just ended there, with a big question mark. But what grew out of that mystery was this incredible legend, a fictional story of survival so powerful it almost feels real. So today, we're diving into that what if, the story of what could have happened during 9 lost years. But first, let's get the facts straight. The actual flight, a Douglas DC-3, had 32 people on board. Now, for the legend we're exploring today, that number gets way bigger. 134. That's 125 passengers and a crew of 9, and every single one of them is about to have their lives changed forever. So, picture this. It's the night of December 27th, 1948. The plane is flying from Puerto Rico to Miami. Its last known location was only about 50 miles from the Florida coast, in an area that would later get a very infamous name, the Bermuda Triangle. At 11:23 p.m., the Rio captain radioed that they were on course, but just minutes later, total silence. The plane was just gone.
And right here is where our story takes a sharp turn from historical fact into this incredible survival fiction. The real plane and the 32 people on it were never found. But in the legend, 82 survivors from a flight of 134 actually came back. So the question is, how on earth did they survive for almost a decade on a deserted island? That's what we're going to find out.
All right, so let's jump into that fictional story on that crazy night. In our story, the flight is captained by a guy named Robert Miller, and everything's going smoothly. But just moments after his last call to air traffic control, something goes horribly, horribly wrong. According to legend, the plane flies right into this sudden, unbelievably violent storm. And the crazy part of the story is that the storm was supposedly so intense, it just fried everything. All the electronic equipment, the compass, the radio, you name it, it all just died. The pilots were flying completely blind right in the middle of this monster storm. In this version of events, after fighting the storm for a half hour, the engines just give out. As they're falling out of the sky toward the ocean, the co-pilot spots an island that's not on any map. The plane slams into a thick jungle, and its fall is cushioned by these huge, ancient trees. And somehow, against all odds, everyone on board survives the crash. You'd think surviving a plane crash is the end of the ordeal, right? Nope. For them, it was just the beginning of a whole new nightmare. They were alive, sure, but they were totally cut off from the world, stuck on an island that officially didn't even exist. Okay, so right off the bat, they were in deep trouble. A retired Army doctor on the flight was dealing with 10 people who were badly hurt. There was no fresh water anywhere in sight, so thirst was becoming a huge problem. And the food, well, the island claimed its first victim pretty quickly when a man, desperate to eat, ate a poisonous fruit and died just hours later. But even in all that despair, they had these little sparks of hope. A teenager who was into science actually managed to start a fire with his glasses, which was a huge win. The plane's engineer, Arthur Vance, even managed to get the radio to work just long enough to send out one single weak distress call before the battery finally died for good. But that little bit of good news, it didn't last long. A group of 5 survivors got impatient, tried to escape on a makeshift raft, and were just swallowed by the sea. You know, losing those 5 people, that really changed things. It was a grim wake-up call. The rest of them realized that escape wasn't going to be easy. If they wanted to live, they had to stop dreaming about a quick rescue and start thinking about how to actually build a life right there on the island. And this is what's so chilling. Back in the real world, the actual search for the plane was called off after about a week. But in our fictional story, the search is imagined as this massive 6-month operation. And after all that, the world just gave up. They were officially declared lost. But just as the world was forgetting them, a new life began on the island. About a year and a half after the crash, a baby boy was born. I mean, can you imagine? That wasn't just a birth. It was this powerful sign that they weren't just survivors anymore. They were becoming a real community, one with a future. So, fueled by this new sense of hope, they decide to try for a rescue one more time. But this time, they'd do it themselves. Led by the engineer, Arthur Vance, they spent months building this large, sturdy boat out of scraps from the plane and wood from the island. The plan was to send 25 of their strongest people to go find help. So they launched this boat. Everyone's celebrating. This is it, right? Their big shot. It's their biggest gamble yet. But what happens next is their single greatest tragedy
and it plunges them into years of darkness and just complete despair. They were only a few miles from the island when a sudden, violent storm just appeared out of nowhere. Massive waves flipped the boat. A few people managed to swim back to the island, but 16 of them drowned. It was a total, soul-crushing blow.
So let's just take a second to process the numbers here, because it's staggering. You had the 5 who left on that first raft, and now 16 more in the boat disaster. That's 21 people lost at sea. On top of that, 15 had already died on the island from sickness or accidents. The total loss was 36 people. Out of the original 134, only 98 were left, and their hope was just shattered.
A disaster like that, it just breaks people. And that's exactly what happened. After 5 years, with resources getting low, the community split in two. Captain Miller led one group that believed they had to keep trying to escape, no matter what. But another group thought that was just a fantasy, a death wish. They believed they had to accept that the island was their home now. And things just got worse from there. The next 2 years were awful. The fighting between the groups, plus disease and a lack of food, claimed another 16 lives. By the end of the 7th year, there were only 82 people left. It really seemed like their story was just going to end quietly, tragically on that forgotten island. But then, in their 8th year, just when all hope seemed lost, a series of completely impossible things starts to happen. It all began with what seemed like another disaster, but it would end up being their salvation.
Okay, get this. First, a huge earthquake shakes the island. It's terrifying, but it moves the wreckage of the plane around and uncovers the radio that had been dead for years. As Arthur Vance goes to check it out, a massive, rare solar flare erupts in space, messing with Earth's magnetic field. And in that exact moment, a 1 in a million chance, as he's just fiddling with a switch, the radio's little green power light flickers on. You can just imagine Arthur Vance, his hands shaking, grabbing that microphone and sending a message that would absolutely stun the world. Air traffic control in Miami just couldn't believe it. They thought it had to be some kind of cruel joke. But when Vance started rattling off the plane's registration number, the captain's name, the original date of the flight, the entire control room fell silent. That call, that impossible call, it set off a massive news search. And one morning, after 9 long years, the 82 survivors woke up to see a U.S. Navy ship on the horizon. The rescue, the reunions with families who thought they were dead for almost a decade, it was a moment that captured the heart of the entire nation. And their story, this unbelievable tale of survival, became a true American legend, like a modern Robinson Crusoe. It was a story told over and over again in magazines and books, a powerful testament to the human will to live, even if the story itself was born from fiction. So in the end, yeah, the story of Flight 1602 is fiction, but it's about something real, isn't it? It's a way for us to explore the big what-ifs around one of the Bermuda Triangle's most famous real-life mysteries. It just goes to show that when we're faced with the unknown, we tell stories to try and find meaning, and that the human spirit, whether it's in fact or fiction, really can get through anything.